What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'm going to go over a couple players that I think are worth looking to involve in trades ahead of Week 11. We're 10 weeks into the fantasy football season, so a lot of you guys pretty much know where you guys are standing in terms of the playoffs. Maybe you've already wrapped up a playoff spot, and it's just time to start looking forward to those playoff matchups and try and buy low on some players that are maybe not going to help teams over the next couple weeks. And maybe some of you guys are 4-6, 5-5, and still trying to fight and claw your way into the playoffs, and you're going to have to make some moves to help your teams now. So trades are some of the most fun things to do in fantasy football. I love it. I'm definitely very active in all the leagues I'm in on the fantasy trade market. It's probably the thing I do the most out of any members of any of my leagues. I generally find it's the way that I make my teams better over the course of the season, just by taking that shotgun approach to trades and banking on myself to win more than half of them. And in general, it works out, and it's a lot of fun too. So I love doing this. I think it's one of my favorite videos to make every single week as well. So in addition to that, if you guys have any trade questions of players that are outside of this, the players I touch on here, please do feel free to ask me in the comments. I'd love to help you guys out. Obviously, it's just a lot of fun interacting with you guys, so I love doing that. But yeah, with that, let's get into the first player. So my first buy low here is going to be Justin Herbert. He's really continued to struggle over the course of the first 10 weeks of the season, and I think a lot of people are kind of out on him, but I don't know why we're really surprised by the fact that he struggled so far. He hasn't had Keenan Allen or Mike Williams for large chunks of this season. He just played a really tough 49ers defense, so it's not surprising at all that without his top two targets and Gerald Everett going down in that game that he struggled again. But it's really possible that he gets both these weapons back this next week with Keenan and Mike Williams potentially coming back against the Chiefs. He's also got some favorable matchups. He's going to find himself in a lot of shootouts, and he's getting healthier himself. We finally saw him, run a QB sneak this last week. He's talked about how he's feeling better, and I think you're going to see him unlock a little bit more rushing ability for him as well, which is going to really help bump up his floor. I think that he really does have a shot to be a top 5 quarterback the rest of the season, and I don't think he's going to cost you that. I know a lot of managers that have him, and they've pivoted to someone like Tua or Geno Smith, so he's maybe their second quarterback, and I think you can definitely get him on the cheap right now, and I'd be absolutely trying to do that if you're struggling at the quarterback position. I think he's got a ton of upside, and I think it's going to be hard to win your fantasy league this year without a quarterback that can really put up some of those week-winning performances, and I think Herbert can do that and might have one or two of those in him the rest of the year, so he'd be a guy I'm targeting at if I'm in need of a quarterback. My next buy low here is going to be Chris Godwin. We finally saw him find the end zone in Germany against the Seahawks this last week, and he looks to be healthy now, finally. He's set himself. He's finally feeling like himself, and that's really great to see. I think he's certainly been a player that's been getting a ton of volume, but we just haven't really felt like he's looked like himself. He hasn't been able to find the end zone. I think that's really going to turn around going forward here. I think he's going to be a lot healthier. We're going to see a lot more chemistry with this Bucs offense in general, so I think this offense is going to move the ball quite a bit more, and that's going to open up a lot more upside for all of these players involved in that Bucs offense, and he's on bye this week, so a lot of managers that are sitting at 5-5, 4-6, and have Chris Godwin on their rosters just maybe don't feel comfortable eating that bye week. They need to get a win right now. So if you're 6-4, 7-3, or better than that, I think Chris Godwin's a guy that I'd definitely be targeting. He's definitely going to be a top 15 to 20 wide receiver the rest of the season for me. He's got a ton of volume. He's a really talented player, so he's just super safe. He's going to be a really nice wide receiver too for you, and I don't think he's going to cost you all that, especially if you can capitalize on somebody that just needs to win this week. So my next buy low here is going to be Travis Etienne. He's coming off of a really down week, which is a little surprising just given how great he's been so far, but I don't think there's any reason to really panic about that. He's still an elite player. He's getting RB1 usage. He's super involved in the passing game, so he's going to be a top 10 running back over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and I just don't know if he's necessarily going to cost you that, especially if you can sort of apply that same principle that we did with Godwin. He's on his bye this week, so if the manager of Etienne in your league really needs a win this week, I think you could sort of offer them a slightly lesser player and make sure you can get Etienne for that player because you can convince them they need to get that win this week, and I think that's going to be a good way to make that get done. In addition to that, Etienne has a Week 17 matchup with the Texans, so he certainly could be a guy that really puts up a week-winning performance in the championship week. So Travis Etienne certainly has a path to being a league winner here, and I think he'd be a guy that I'm definitely targeting. My last buy low here is going to be Chris Olave. He's just an extremely talented player that's coming off of a couple of bad weeks in a row. I think that in general the Saints offense is going to improve though. I think Jameis Winston's going to take over as the starting quarterback here probably this week, and he really should. He's looked a lot better than Andy Dalton has. The Saints have no reason to really look at Dalton. He's clearly not going to be their quarterback of the future, and maybe Jameis Winston isn't either, but there's no reason to not give Winston that shot. And this offense just looks more explosive. Maybe they're going to be more turnover prone, but that's not bad for fantasy. And it's just going to open up another level for all these Saints players. And Chris Olave has been extremely involved despite the bad weeks. He's got a 28% target share and 44% of the air yards in the Saints offense since week 2. And like I said, he's just a really talented player. I think he's still going to be a wide receiver 2 for me the rest of the season. He's going to have some boom weeks just because of how fast and how much of a deep threat he is. He'd be a guy that I'm really comfortable just playing every single week and sort of rolling with the highs and lows. But I think he's going to be involved enough that you're going to sort of avoid those dud weeks that some of those other boom bust players might have. And he's got a really favorable playoff schedule. He gets the Falcons, Browns, and Eagles. Obviously, those first two matchups are really great in weeks 15 and 16. And then obviously the Eagles aren't a great matchup, but they do give it up to the wide receivers, so it's a decent matchup there as well. So Olave is a guy that I think could really help you right now, and in general, the manager of him is probably pretty frustrated right now. So my first sell high here is going to be Najee Harris. I think a lot of managers are going to be encouraged by the fact that he had 99 rushing yards this last week. And honestly, he did look the best I've seen him look all year. He had a couple explosive runs. He broke a few tackles, and that's something that he's really had a hard time doing so far this season. But I still think that Jaylen Warren just looked like a better player. The Steelers' offense is just brutal. They're not really able to move the ball at all. Kenny Pickett doesn't look great. Najee Harris got one target this week, and that's been a staple of how he's been fantasy relevant. So even though you finally saw him look good on the ground, he wasn't a usable member of this passing game. We saw Jaylen Warren coming in on third downs a lot, and honestly, Jaylen Warren looked better than him. He had more fantasy points than him in PPR scoring this last week. He was more efficient with his touches, and I don't know that Jaylen Warren's a better player, but it's certainly a conversation, and I think that the Steelers have a lot of reason to sort of make this more of an even split. So Najee Harris is going to be like a really low-end running back 2 the rest of the season, if that. Like, I'm going to be uncomfortable starting him in any single matchup, so I think that you can maybe sell high on those 99 rushing yards. Say he's healthy after the bye week. He looks good. He's going to be a guy that's the guy that you draft him to be, maybe not quite, but you could probably sell him as like a high-end running back 2 just with that volume. He did have 19 carries this last week, so you can sell your other managers in your league on that, and I don't see it. He's not an explosive player. He's not getting passing game work, and Jaylen Warren looks better. So I'd be looking to move him for any sort of running back 2 value or a wide receiver 2 if you can. So my next sell high here is going to be Devin Singletary. He did a rebound in the touchdown department this last week. He finally had 2 touchdowns, and it was kind of funny to see this Bills offense finally put out some points that weren't Josh Allen coming into this last week. Josh Allen had all but like 2 of the Bills touchdowns. So seeing Devin Singletary get 2 on his own this week is a bit of a fluke there. But he's still ceding more and more snaps to James Cook as the season goes on. James Cook's getting more and more involved. And Nyheim Hines, they traded for him for a reason. So he's going to start taking more and more receiving work from Singletary. And I think you're just going to find that Singletary is going to be a guy that gets 10 to 15 touches. He's probably not going to get very many targets. So he ends up being a really touchdown-dependent running back, too. Obviously, he's on a great offense, so touchdown opportunities are there. But I think Josh Allen's going to be the guy that finds the most of those. He is basically their goal line running back. So Devin Singletary would be a guy that I've been looking to trade for running back 2 value. I just don't think I'm ever going to be super comfortable starting him. And I think that upside is pretty much just not there unless he manages to fall in the end zone twice again, which I don't think that's going to happen very often. So if you can sell high on this last week, I'd definitely try to do it. There are a lot of managers that just really need a running back, and I know that it's hard to sell high on a running back because most of you guys need them. But if you don't need Singletary, if you've got 3 or 4 good running backs on your roster, I'd be looking to move Singletary. My last sell high here is going to be Christian Watson. Obviously, he had a really great game in Week 10. We saw him catch 4 passes for 108 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that's great. It's really great to see him break out as a rookie. He's always been an explosive player, and it's nice to see him finally put it together. But he's likely just never going to have a 3-touchdown game again in his career. They're just extremely rare. It was really great to see. It's nice to see that he has that upside, but I don't think that's something that we're ever really going to depend on. And obviously, you're not betting on that if you have him, but this Packers offense is still an extremely low passing volume. I think they threw 19 passes this last week. And I don't think that Lazard is really just going to fade away here. I think he's still the wide receiver 1 in this Packers offense. We saw Christian Watson have 2 drops on his 8 targets this last week, so he's still dealing with that. And I think it's just going to be hard for the Packers to really trust him that much and really make him a feature guy. Randall Cobb's coming back here soon as well, so we're going to see him get some targets. This is going to be a team that if they want to win games, they're going to run the ball as much as possible. They're going to try and play defense, then ask Rodgers to make some big plays when they need him. And I think that's just going to make Christian Watson like a really low-floor wide receiver 3 at best the rest of the season. So I'd be looking to sell high on this week, convince somebody that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay the rest of the year, convince them that he's got high draft capital and is an explosive player, and he could be the kind of guy that really just wins you a league. But I don't see that happening. I'd be more than comfortable moving him for any player that I'm comfortable starting the rest of the year. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.